What if the CIA conducted a top-secret mission to the moon, not with rockets, but with a psychic? This is the incredible inside story of Ingo Swann, the artist whose mind was allegedly deployed by the CIA to explore the moon's darkest, most guarded secrets. He didn't just claim his psychic abilities were weaponized. Swann asserted he was psychically sent on classified missions to the lunar surface. What he reported seeing went far beyond any official NASA data. Towering structures, alien machinery, even living beings. Could the man who stunned scientists by describing Jupiter's hidden rings years before probes arrived also have unveiled an extraterrestrial presence on our moon, a truth concealed by this clandestine CIA operation? This is the story of that classified lunar mission, psychic espionage, Cold War paranoia, and the unsettling possibility that the moon harbors secrets the government desperately needed to understand. What is really on the moon? Ingo Swann, born in Colorado in 1933, was no ordinary psychic. An artist by trade, keenly intelligent, he was often skeptical, even of his own unusual experiences. He reported having out-of-body experiences since childhood and claimed he could perceive auras, but it wasn't until the late 1960s and early 1970s that his unique talents captured the serious attention of researchers. This was an era of burgeoning fascination with parapsychology, fueled in part by Cold War anxieties. US intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, grew concerned that the Soviets were gaining an edge in psychic research, dubbed psychotronics, potentially for espionage. This fear became a primary driver for America's own investment in similar clandestine programs. Swann became a pivotal figure at the Stanford Research Institute, SRI, in California, collaborating with physicists Harold Puthoff and Russell Targ. It was there that Swann was instrumental in developing and coining the term remote viewing. Unlike the often vague predictions of traditional psychics, remote viewing aimed for a more structured, methodical process. Viewers were given specific targets, sometimes mere map coordinates, and tasked with describing what they perceived in their mind's eye. Swann, known for his artistic sensibility and his insistence on more rigorous experimental conditions, constantly pushed the boundaries. He wasn't content with identifying hidden objects within a room. He aspired to view distant locations, even other planets. His demand for rigor and his surprisingly accurate results began to turn heads, not just in academic circles, but within the secretive echelons of US intelligence. This trajectory led to his involvement in government-sponsored programs like SCAN8 and, most famously, Project Stargate. These initiatives explored the potential of psychic abilities, especially remote viewing, as tools for intelligence gathering, envisioning applications like spying on enemy installations, locating hostages, or tracking submarines. Before Ingo Swann was directed to aim his mental faculties at the moon, an earlier experiment dramatically bolstered his reputation and, for some, lent a disconcerting credibility to his later, more outlandish claims. In April 1973 at SRY, Swann undertook a remote viewing session targeting the planet Jupiter. This was years before NASA's Pioneer 10 and Voyager 1 probes transmitted their groundbreaking images and data. At the time, detailed knowledge of Jupiter was relatively scarce. Swann, after a period of concentration, began to describe the gas giant. He noted a dense hydrogen atmosphere, swirling cyclonic storms, and high levels of infrared radiation. While these aspects might have been deducible or part of existing scientific theories, he then described something astonishing: bands of crystals shimmering in Jupiter's atmosphere, which he specifically likened to Saturn's rings, only much closer to the planet and situated within its atmosphere. He even speculated if they might reflect radio waves. At that time, the scientific community largely dismissed the notion of Jupiter having rings. Saturn was the ringed planet. Jupiter was not. However, when NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft flew past Jupiter in 1979, it made a stunning discovery. Jupiter did possess a faint, dusty ring system. It wasn't the spectacular icy display of Saturn, nor was it precisely in the atmosphere as Swann had somewhat ambiguously described, but the mere existence of any rings was a shock. Later missions, such as the Galileo spacecraft, confirmed the presence of ammonia ice crystals in Jupiter's atmosphere, another detail that seemed to resonate with Swann's viewing. It's crucial to maintain perspective here. Swann's description of the rings wasn't a perfectly clear scientific prediction. He spoke of bands of crystals in the atmosphere that he likened to rings. Skeptics rightly point out that some of his Jupiter observations could have been educated guesses, and the ring description was somewhat nebulous. Pioneer 10, which had an earlier flyby of Jupiter, failed to detect the rings. Voyager 1 was the first to confirm them. Records indicate Swann's statements were more speculative than definitive declarations. Nevertheless, the convergence of several of Swann's descriptions, the storms, the atmospheric composition, and particularly the unexpected mention of something akin to rings, was enough to deeply impress researchers like Puthoff and Targ, and significantly, figures within US intelligence. It wasn't perceived as a single lucky guess, but a compelling cluster of details about a remote, largely enigmatic world. This perceived success with Jupiter became a cornerstone of Swann's legend. If he could see details of a planet hundreds of millions of miles away, what other feats were possible? This very question would lead to his most controversial and unsettling assignment. Swann's work at SRI, particularly the Jupiter viewing, certainly did not go unnoticed. The CIA and other military intelligence agencies were already exploring the potential of psychic phenomena for espionage under various programs that were eventually consolidated into Project Stargate. Operating from the 1970s until its official termination and declassification in 1995, Stargate employed a small cadre of remote viewers to attempt intelligence gathering on diverse targets, while official reports later concluded that remote viewing was too inconsistent to be a reliable intelligence asset. The very existence of such a program for over 2 decades, shrouded in secrecy, suggests that someone, somewhere, believed in its potential. According to Swann's own account in his 1998 book, Penetration, The Question of Extraterrestrial and Human Telepathy, his involvement took a dramatically clandestine turn in 1975. He claimed he was contacted by a high-ranking government official who introduced him to an enigmatic figure known only as Mr. Axelrod. Swann described being transported, under conditions of extreme secrecy, sometimes even blindfolded, to an undisclosed, possibly subterranean facility. There, Mr. Axelrod and his team, whom Swann suspected were part of a deeply covert, off-the-books agency, presented him with a highly specific and unusual target for his remote viewing abilities: the Moon. Swann wrote that he was provided with specific lunar coordinates, often on the far side of the Moon, the hemisphere never visible from Earth. He was simply instructed to describe his perceptions. This was no casual experiment. Swann sensed an urgency and gravity in these requests that far transcended mere scientific curiosity. The impression Swann received was that this clandestine group already suspected something anomalous on the Moon and sought his unique perspective to confirm or augment their existing knowledge. What Ingo Swann claimed to have perceived on the Moon, as detailed in his book Penetration, was nothing short of paradigm-shattering, and if true, would fundamentally alter our understanding of the cosmos. As he focused his consciousness on the provided lunar coordinates, he initially experienced confusion, suspecting his psychic vision had inadvertently reverted to Earth. The imagery was profoundly dissonant with the conventional understanding of the Moon as a barren, lifeless satellite. Swann reported observing distinct evidence of artificial structures. He described seeing large buildings, including tower-like edifices and machinery, casting long shadows in the stark lunar illumination. He perceived lights of various colors, some emanating from within craters. He recounted seeing what appeared to be tracks, possibly from vehicles, and enormous D-shaped structures resembling hangars or airfields. He mentioned bridges of unknown purpose and numerous domes of varying sizes. Even more disturbingly, Swann asserted he saw beings. He described them as humanoid, apparently unclothed, and engaged in activities that looked like digging or mining operations. These were not ethereal apparitions, but seemingly tangible, physical entities working with functional equipment. The most terrifying moment, according to Swann, occurred when some of these lunar beings appeared to detect his psychic presence. He wrote that 2 of them pointed directly at him, sending a wave of fear through him, along with the chilling realization that they too might possess advanced psychic capabilities. This encounter, he stated, led his handlers to abruptly terminate that particular viewing session. Swann alleged that his government contacts, including Mr. Axelrod, exhibited no surprise at his reports of structures and beings. He interpreted their lack of shock as damning evidence that they were already aware, or at least strongly suspected, such phenomena on the Moon. Swann even formulated a theory that the Apollo program was ostensibly curtailed and human missions to the Moon ceased because they, the Moon's inhabitants, had warned humanity away. This, he surmised, was why the government resorted to psychic surveillance of the Moon. It is critically important to note that these assertions are based entirely on Swann's personal accounts from his book and lack independent, scientific or official corroboration. Mainstream science and official space agency reports show no evidence of artificial structures or non-human beings on the Moon. Following his purported remote viewings of the Moon, Swann claimed he was verbally bound to secrecy for at least a decade. The entire operation, as he portrayed it, was designed to leave no paper trail, ensuring plausible deniability for the agency involved. This, naturally, renders his claims exceptionally difficult to verify. Project Stargate itself was declassified in 1995, with the CIA concluding that remote viewing was not a dependable intelligence-gathering method. However, many documents pertaining to these programs remain heavily redacted or classified. Particularly, some researchers speculate, those dealing with more unconventional targets like UFOs or potential extraterrestrial phenomena. While Swann's most sensational claims about lunar beings and vast artificial complexes find no support in mainstream scientific evidence, some proponents of his work highlight later astronomical discoveries as intriguing, if highly tenuous, confirmations of some of his vaguer descriptions of the lunar environment. For instance, Swann described sensing a very thin atmosphere or faint air currents. Decades later, scientists confirmed the Moon possesses an extremely tenuous exosphere composed of trace gases. More strikingly, he reported a sensation of haze or moisture in certain areas, including regions perpetually devoid of sunlight. Astonishingly, in the 2000s and 2010s, NASA missions like LCR, OSS, and India's Chandrayaan-1 confirmed the presence of significant water ice deposits precisely in these permanently shadowed craters near the Moon's poles, the very kind of locations Swann was reportedly tasked to view. These craters, forever shielded from sunlight, are now considered prime locations for future lunar bases and resource extraction, a focal point of intense international scientific and exploratory interest. However, extreme caution is warranted with these so-called corroborations. The Moon's exosphere is, for all practical purposes, a vacuum, a far cry from a breathable atmosphere, and Swann's descriptions were characteristically vague. The discovery of water ice, while a monumental scientific achievement with profound implications for future lunar missions, does not validate his psychic visions of complex alien bases. These are compelling coincidences, undoubtedly, but they fall far short of substantiating the core of Swann's extraordinary lunar narrative. Mainstream science has found zero evidence of the structures or beings Swann described. Despite the official dismissal of remote viewing's utility for espionage and the absence of concrete proof for his lunar claims, Ingo Swann's story continues to fascinate and provoke. His apparent earlier success with Jupiter, however interpreted, offers a tantalizing what-if for those inclined to believe. Was he a gifted psychic who genuinely glimpsed behind a cosmic veil? Was he merely a participant in psychological experiments? Or was he a masterful storyteller, albeit a highly intelligent and articulate one? The official stance is that Project Stargate yielded little of operational value. Yet the very fact that such a program existed, channeling taxpayer funds into psychic espionage for over 2 decades, implies that someone, at some level, must have perceived a potential, however slim. Ingo Swann passed away in 2013, leaving behind a legacy as intricate and controversial as his life's work. He was a pioneer in the field of remote viewing, an artist, and a man who professed to have witnessed secrets capable of upending our understanding of the universe and our place within it. His accounts of Jupiter, while open to varied interpretations, remain a compelling piece of evidence for his advocates. His chilling depictions of an inhabited moon, detailed in his book Penetration, are dismissed by conventional science, but continue to fuel speculation within communities fixated on UFOs, government secrecy, and the paranormal. The official narrative holds that the moon is a desolate, lifeless world, albeit one where we have recently discovered valuable resources like water ice. Project Stargate is characterized as a failed experiment in psychic espionage. And yet, the questions Swann ignited, amplified by his unique history, refused to be entirely extinguished. If a man could, with what some might argue was a notable degree of accuracy, describe features of a distant planet before our probes arrived, what are we to make of his far more shocking claims about our own cosmic neighbour? As humanity embarks on a new era of lunar exploration, with missions targeting those very polar regions, rich in water ice that Swann was supposedly asked to view, one cannot help but wonder if any unexpected discoveries will, even faintly, echo the psychic's darkest secret, that he knew we are not alone. So, what are your thoughts on Ingo Swann's claims? Was he truly onto something monumental, or was it all an elaborate fabrication? Share your opinions in the comments below. If you found this journey into the unknown compelling, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more deep dives into unexplained mysteries, and be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video.